Guys, let's go over this bird color and font assignment. We're going to be using a photo of a bird for color inspiration. And like I was telling you guys in class, whenever you need a color palette in your future graphic design careers, as you're helping companies be branded or you're doing communications for business, and you need to come up with a color palette, just look outside, look to nature, because the color harmonies in nature are always pretty fantastic. There's also a lot of inspiration found in nature for patterns. I'm slightly obsessed with birds and patterns in birds and colors in birds. I just think they're so amazing. So here's a little assignment to help us with our page layout skills and also working with the color swatches and the eyedropper tool. So let's go ahead and get started. Open up your InDesign and let's create a new document. We're going to be setting this up on a letter size page. So you can pick your default right here if you want to do that. And over in the panel, we can type in your name, the project, bird color palette, and the orientation is going to be portrait. The unit of measurement is going to be inches. We're going to make sure facing pages is turned off because we're not doing a booklet or a magazine. And we're going to leave all the rest of the defaults as is and click create. So the first thing we're going to do is drop an image of a bird in here, and I'm assuming you guys have gone out to Unsplash and found a great image of a bird that you want to use, keeping color top of mind. So go over to your toolbar and let's grab a rectangle, and if you click on your Alt or Option key, if you hold down your Alt or Option then click on your page, you get the rectangle dialog box, and our size is 6 by 6. So input 6 inches by 6 inches and click OK. And then grab your selection tool and grab that box you just made. Remember, you have to click on the edge of that shape to be able to move it around, because if I try to move it inside it won't work. So be sure you're right on the edge of the shape and center it up on your page. With your 6 by 6 selected, let's go to Command D to drop an image into place. And navigate to where you put your bird. I'm going to use this one. Ooh. And it'll go ahead and place the image into your 6 by 6 frame, image frame. And it pops it in there at full size. So you'll need to right click on that image and go to Fitting, Fill Frame Proportionally. There's also a button here in your top control bar, the contextual menu up here, that you can fit frame, or what is it? Fill frame proportionally. Fill frame proportionally. Yes, that's the one we need. And you guys will remember, if you double click on your image, you'll see a little brown highlight appear, and it goes outside of your image frame, and that's how big this image is behind there in the frame. You can use your hand tool or a target to move it around. Remember, you can grab the edge of your image not the image frame, which is a blue highlighted box, which is the window that your image sits in, but the brown image, which you double click and then grab a corner and be sure you're holding down your shift keys so you can resize this proportionally, and then you can stretch it out or down to make it smaller. If you zoom out of your window, which you can find under view zoom out, or it's command hyphen, then if you grab the corner of this image and hold your shift key down, you can be enlarging this way outside of your whole page. So it can get pretty huge. So go ahead and put your image in there as you like. And be sure you're checking back to see what the parameters are for this project. Okay, now we're going to put some text on this image. We're going to grab our type tool, click and drag out a text frame. And in this, you're going to type the name of your bird. And then let's style this type. And when you're choosing typography for this project, just like in any other graphic design project, I want you to think about what it is you're trying to visually communicate. We can use type just as we can use images to try to evoke a feeling from our audience. So, think about your bird. What do you want to say about your bird? In this one, I chose, because my wren was kind of chubby and small, I chose this kind of chubby and squat typeface to represent that wren. So think about that as you're styling your type. So because I chose a raven, first I'm going to make my type a lot bigger by using the control panel at the top, or by clicking Command T to get the character panel. And the type size is a drop down menu just like all of these are. And I'm going to make it, I didn't do anything because it wasn't selected, so be sure it's selected so you can affect it, and then you can style your type. Remember, there are these little up and down arrows, or you can double click in these windows and just type in any size. Remember, if you have text not fitting within your text frame, you get this little red square with a plus in it that's telling you, you have type here, but it's not fitting. When you're styling your text, play with these tracking and kerning controls. Remember, tracking is the one, like a railroad track, it tightens or loosens everything in the line. Kerning is the one where we place our cursor between two characters, and then we can shift the space between them. And as you start learning more about typography, and probably take the typography class in this program, you'll learn a lot more about which letters almost always need to be kerned. So I'm liking this text. It seems pretty traditional. And it reminds me of this raven with these sharp points. So let's grab our swatches panel and open that up. And your swatches panel is typically populated with default colors, which are usually a good place to start. But for this assignment, we're going to explore using the eyedropper tool to sample the colors within the image. When you're doing graphic design and page layout, illustration, it's always nice to have a unified color palette. If you pick up colors in the image you're using for your typography, or your graphic elements. It just helps you create and present a cohesive piece. So go ahead over to your toolbar on the left hand side and you'll see the eyedropper tool. This is one of those nested tools that has a little white arrow in the bottom right corner, letting you know that there are nested tools within that tool. So let's go ahead and click and hold down on the eyedropper tool, and the one at the top is called Color Theme Tool. This is a really handy tool because whatever image you're using, you can click on it with your color theme tool and it'll automatically pick up and populate and tell you what colors are in this image. It's so helpful. And then you'll see a little arrow next to the swatches it's created for you. If you click on that, there's some options to use bright, dark, muted tones of the colors. I like muted. So that's a really handy tool. And in that same little mini dialog box, next to the drop down versions of the colors, there's a little grid and a little plus. And when you click on that, your pop-up tooltip will tell you, if you click on that, it adds the theme to your swatches. So it's really handy. And then if you look over in your swatches panel, remember these panels are really adjustable. You can grab the bottom to make them bigger or shorter, or the side to make them wider. They're really flexible. And remember, they shift in and out of your palette corral over here. Also remember, if you can't find them, they're always up in the InDesign menu under Window. They're all up here for you. So right over here, it's created in a folder called Muted Theme, some colors used in this page layout. So now as we're going through and styling our text and choosing colors, we can begin to explore using some of the colors within the palette. Remember, the W key on your keyboard gives you a quick view of your design. If you're working with a bird like mine, maybe you want an outline around it because my colors at the edge of this 6x6 are really light. I think maybe a stroke around it would be nice. So I'm going to be sure I'm on the stroke, not the fill, in my swatches panel. And then I'm going to choose probably a nice light colored stroke. And up here in my control bar, I'm going to set that to be really thin and delicate at 0.25 point. And that kind of just helps give the edge of my square here a little structure. So have fun and play around with some different type styles, something that you think might be, you know, representative of your bird. Ignore my dog snoring in the background. So be sure you're using 2 different fonts for this. Your headline is the name of your bird, so it should be big. And your tagline should be smaller. See examples. Yeah, that's about it. Oh yeah. And the last part, I'm going to set Gothic. Remember legibility when you're working through this. It's very importante. Alright, the last little bit is, well, there are two more little bits. One is to create a series of squares to represent the colors that we discovered within our image. So let's head back over to our text bar and grab the rectangle. And again, let's hold down Option or Alt on our keyboard and then click on the page, and let's make 1 by 1 squares. And we're going to fill those with the colors we discovered in our image. So heading back over to your swatches, the first one I'm going to fill with that color. And then I'm going to move it and align it, because alignment is what we live for as designers. Remember, over in your ruler on the side and the top of your page, you can drag out these little guides, these little invisible guides to help us align things. So I'm going to put one right on the edge of my 6 by 6, and then I can easily align my first little square up with that guy. And then to create the other squares, we could do a Command C and a Command V for copy and paste, which it'll always paste it into the middle of your page. We could do up in the top InDesign menu, there's Edit, Copy, Edit, Paste. You could do it that way. Or really the best way, especially in this circumstance, is to highlight the square. With it highlighted, hold down your Alt or Option key, and you'll see your cursor become a little double cursor. It doesn't happen unless you're on the selected thing. And that's telling you, oh, okay, you want a copy of this. And if you hold down your Option or Alt and your Shift key, you can drag out in line all the boxes you're going to need. So your Option and your Alt and your Shift key will give you a bunch of boxes. So go ahead and select those and fill those with the colors that you sampled with your eyedropper from the image. And because we are a stickler for alignment, we need these boxes to align on the right hand edge of the 6 by 6 as well. Right now it's too far away. So to accomplish this, we could do two things. We could select all of these boxes by clicking on them and holding the Shift key down, and then we could go to the corner of all of these selected shapes, hold our Shift key down, and just drag out so that our boxes become big enough to fill and be flush on each edge of the image above it. Because everything has to align. It's one of our design principles, and it's critical as a graphic designer. The other way we could do this is we could leave this box aligned to the left, and we could grab this guy and holding our Shift key down so it moves directly in a line, we can align that to the right hand edge. Then we can select all of these shapes, and using something we haven't used before, up in your top control bar or your contextual menu are these little align buttons, and there's one that says distribute horizontal centers. So let's click on that, and if we click that, then magically they all just get distributed correctly. I don't see it in the right click, which you guys have been good about helping me remember that that's always a nice little fast option. So align, when you're on your selection tool, is in the very top control bar contextual menu. It's not in the top InDesign menu, but it's in the top contextual control bar. It's also a panel, so if you don't see it and you want to work with it on the panel, you can go to Window, and since it's an object that we're affecting, it's under the Object and Layout, Align right there. So that's a nice little tool to know how to use, because often we need things aligned in the centers to be lined up. So go ahead and distribute horizontal centers. Nice. I feel like my page would look a lot better if I put a dark background behind it. And we've done that with the business card and our animal initials, so feel free to do that if you want to. And to do that, you could grab your rectangle tool, start outside of your page, and click and drag over everything. And then with your fill to the front, select one of the colors, maybe in your sample palette from the picture, and then right click on the shape, arrange, send to back, or shift command bracket. So that's cool. If you chose one of the colors from your color palette, one of the colors from your boxes might disappear into it. So to solve that, let's just put a little stroke around that, bringing the stroke to the front of our swatches panel. I'm going to choose one of the colors, one of the other colors, and I'm going to make it a nice thin stroke, and that way you can still kind of see it. Alright, the last part of this project is to draw one more text frame. So grab your text tool and click and drag out your final text frame, and down here you're going to tell why you chose it, some justifications for your type choices. So I chose the Raven because. Remember to style the color of your type in your swatches panel. You need to be on the T, and it has to be selected. And then you can style your type up and down. So you can style this type as well. It's always best to keep it simple. Remember, as graphic designers, we never want to see hyphenated things, so up here in your control bar contextual menu, there's a little A and a little paragraph symbol right at the left hand side. If you click the paragraph symbol right around in the middle of the page, you'll see a hyphenate or do not hyphenate button. We really always want that to be off. The other thing I want to tell you about right now, since it's a really good time, we never want one word to be all alone at the end of a paragraph, or at the end or on a line. We call those widows because they're so sad and lonely and all by themselves. And graphically and aesthetically, it just doesn't look good. if this was a hyphenated word and the last part of a hyphenated word was on the last line, we'd call that an orphan, because wow, that's even sadder than a widow. So stay away from widows and orphans, and just change the size of your type if you need it to come up to fit so there's no hyphen. Please do that. That is how we do it. All right, good job. I can't wait to see your birds.